The legal back and forth over the deportation flights carrying Venezuelan migrants has President Donald Trump calling for the impeachment of a federal judge and a Supreme Court justice also weighing in, pushing back against the president's calls for impeachment of that judge. Let's bring back our 21 News at 5 legal expert Brian Kopp to break down the finger pointing here and what the law says. Brian, over the weekend, we saw this footage of the Venezuelan migrants labeled by the White House as gang members, taken away in handcuffs, heads shaven. They were put on planes for deportation. The Trump administration is using the Aliens Enemies Act to send them to prisons in El Salvador. What is the law intended for in the first place, and is this an overreach?
You know, generally speaking, these were kind of like wartime powers. You know, you go back to the World War II era where we saw Japanese internment or Germans that were considered maybe potential spies, true enemies of the country. No one believes that gang members belong here, especially if they're illegal. But I think it's the way in which the administration is attempting to do this that is causing courts some concern.
Okay. And a federal judge, James Boasberg, ordered this process to stop. President Trump is calling it political. He's calling Boasberg's impeachment to happen. Here, also, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts issued a response saying, in part, quote, "For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision." What do you think may shake out and the president's next steps?
Well, let's separate political rhetoric from the Constitution. I mean, the Constitution is very clear. We have separation of powers in this country, and the rule of law is critical to our democracy. No president can say, remove a federal judge just because I disagree with them. A long time ago, you know, we have a federal court here in Youngstown. I worked for a United States district judge as a new lawyer, and you learn a lot about the balance between the legislature, the executive branch, and the judiciary. And our Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is dead on when he says there's only certain ways a federal judge can be removed. Disagreeing with the decision is absolutely not one of them.
Would it take an act of Congress to redefine what a gang member is or a migrant gang member threat is for deportations to continue legally?
Well, you know, I think you've hit on something that's very delicate right now. Is sometimes legislatures or administrations are very reactionary to the times. And there's no contemplation to what that means in the future as to what it means from a constitutional offense. We like things to move slowly in a democracy. And that's important because the Constitution is the guiding principle or the guiding base of our democracy. So for the legislature to pass a law that is obviously observed and goes through committees, but yes, they could define it. Would it be subject to constitutional scrutiny? Yes. Could it be subject to veto? Yes. So our process needs to take place, and no one wants gang members running in the United States. I just think it's the way that this is being done that courts are going to put the brakes on, not necessarily stop it permanently, but for right now, they're going to put the brakes on it.
We're also monitoring the federal court fight over the plans to move the Cleveland Browns stadium to Brook Park and out of the city. On Tuesday, the Browns asked a federal court judge for permission to file an updated lawsuit against the city over the Modell law. They're claiming it's unconstitutional. Who has the legal argument on their side?
Well, I think it's the opposite here. I think that whatever law was passed at the time was very political and reactionary to the Browns leaving. I mean, I think there's some good thoughts in that piece of legislation. Do I think it can survive scrutiny by a federal court? No. I mean, saying you take taxpayer money, but if you want to move, you have to negotiate with us that we could force you to sell something. I mean, those are things that are beyond contractual rights. There's contractual rights between the Browns and the NFL. So I think this is going to be a pretty clear picture in the end that the Browns are going to be able to do what they want. They may not get much help from the state or the city when it comes to funding. But in the current climate of sports franchise valuations, if they want to move, I think they're going to get there.
Okay. And also Justin Bibb, mayor of Cleveland, he just tweeted out today on X the Haslams made misleading statements about the diligent work the city's done over the past years to revitalize the lakefront. He's calling this a scheme. So we'll see where this goes. But so far, it seems like it's a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, in both cases, separate the politics from the legalities. And if you follow the legalities, I think you're going to see a pretty clear road in both cases.
Yeah, message of the day. Glad you're here to sort it out with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.